Alright, back with another Raging Demons RPG for you. I'm sorry about my absence. I just haven't had time. You all know how that works out, and I must sincerely apologize. At the same time, I'd like to thank anybody who has subscribed, either in the past or the near present, over the past few days, past few weeks. Been seeing them pop up there. I just thought I'd say thanks, because I wasn't putting any new videos out, and I still got subscriptions, so that said to me that, even without new content, still what I was saying, was being well received. Okay, so a lot of you out in there in Gamerland have been putting up a lot of your top 10, top 25, your favorite movies, all that stuff. Well, for me, it's not so simple. I can't really narrow it down to movies in one particular genre. And it's a genre that means the most to me, because without it, I never would have gone anywhere near a gaming table or tried to engage any of these, anything that this hobby had to offer. And that genre, of course, is fantasy. Now, we know from some of my past videos that I got into gaming as a hobby from Palladium Fantasy, just a random fluke trip, but the groundwork was already there. My love of fantasy started very young, and that's where today I'm just going to kind of discuss the movie and television pieces that fit together to create the complete puzzle that is sort of my mind when it comes to fantasy. Well, I shouldn't say my mind completely, but it gave me it opened the door for me. It allowed me to get interested in what other people had written, history, mythology. I mean, it's fascinating what I know now, based on what some people would term as, these silly little games that, these sad little men play, and which of course you all know I don't believe for a second, but that's, unfortunately some of the mainstream's opinion. Everybody's entitled to be wrong. Okay, so starting off, when I was a child, 2 fantasy films for sure, 3 fantasy films for sure that really got my blood boiling as far as fantasy is concerned, was predominantly for sure, and you know what, I even still make it a tradition to watch this every birthday I've had, and I'm coming up on the 30th one of those, so it's been watched a few times. That would be Flight of Dragons. Now, if you're not familiar with that, I'm pretty sure you can watch it beginning to end on YouTube, no interruptions. I'll put it to you this way, though. It came out on Betamax. My parents played that for me when I was very young. So that kind of got me into not only fantasy, but I really got into villains when I was a kid. Particularly the main villain in the movie. His name is Omadon. He's a red wizard, and the thing of it is, in this particular mythos, there are 4 magic brothers that encompass all of magic and all its creatures, and they're kind of like deities. They're deified mages. It's very strange. Now that I'm older and can pick and analyze it all. But anyway, the evil one, the necessary evil, you could say, was Omadon, and Omadon was voiced by James Earl Jones. I don't need to tell you that that is a great villain voice. His dragon that he rode, Briog. Briog was probably my favorite villainous creature of all time, and I still love him. You know what? I know that the movie was based loosely off The Flight of Dragons by Peter Dickinson, which was more of an analytical text on the science behind dragons if they had existed, kind of like a dragonology textbook. And also The Dragon and the George. That's why a lot of these names translate over. Briog was definitely from The Dragon and the George. But I didn't read that kind of stuff when I was a kid. Really, I mean, I just didn't go near it. I still barely read anything outside of, historical reading manuals, warfare, anything on warfare. It takes a real strange author, I think, to catch my attention. Next, probably would have to be around that same time. It definitely would be the Hobbit. Once again, the animated film. Not so much the Lord of the Rings animated films. I know it's going to make Tim at Samwise7 RPG a little bit upset because he's very dedicated to the Lord of the Rings films. And his where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a whip, there's a way. Oh my God! See, that's how bad I am. He put that out, and that's dedication. I couldn't even do that. Some of my favorite movies, and what those did for me was, again, a dragon was the main villain. I fucking love dragons, and I mean, to a certain extent. Actually, you know what? No, I do in fact love dragons. I can almost take them in any form. I'm not really crazy on the snaky Eastern dragons that are out in mythology, but I will prove it to you that I would gobble up anything that involved dragons as a very small child. I mean, we're talking under the age of 5. There is, and I'm gonna out myself a little bit, but my parents, anything fantasy related, they got me, and didn't care what sort of gender relationship was intended. They got me on Betamax as well. A My Little Pony movie. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh my God, seriously? Did you watch My Little Pony? Guilty. I was I was a kid. But here's what's the name of this movie? My Little Pony and the Escape from the Dark Castle? Castle of Darkness? Something like that? I mean, the title would sound like very ponyish. But here's the thing that I loved about it. One thing, the bad guy is this horned beast a la Legend, which I'm kind of skipping ahead. It's actually one of the movies on the list. And he sends his underling, who rides dragons and leads a swarm of dragons, to capture the ponies. And don't ask me why, but when the bad guy gets these ponies, this fantastic thing happens, and I recommend anybody who's into fantasy to look up this scene alone, just because the corruption of these sweet, charming little My Little Ponies gets completely just taken away. He uses his power of darkness, and they get sucked up into this swirling evil vortex of shadow and kind of whistling wind, and when they emerge, they are these draconic steeds to pull his chariot of darkness, which of course, if he completes his task, he'll be able to darken the whole world. So yeah, I was a big dragon fanatic. You put a dragon on that, you make it villainous enough, I'm there. Legend, as I said, is one of the fantasy influences I had. I'm not doing any of these in any particular order. As they come to me, because I tried to remember all of them, and I'm going to even forget some, and I'm going to be like, son of a, scheisse. You're going to be just like, my God, I can't believe I forgot that. Now, another thing that kind of reinforced this whole fantasy, suspension of disbelief for me is because I grew up in the Bavarian region of Germany, and that's which, for those not in the know, that's near the Black Forest. So this place is steeped in history. There's old castles everywhere. You go to Munich, you can see tons of old castles. And the Black Forest is this fantastical place to a child. I mean, even as a child, you can visit the town of Hamlin and see where the Pied Piper supposedly led the children off the cliff. And I'll be damned, that's a hell of a drop. It's like head smashed in buffalo jump for toddlers. It's morbid as hell, but you know what? As a kid, you're like, that's the real place. That's the story. Oh my god! And you go to the castle that is exactly the same castle that's in Disneyland. The castle that's in Disneyland, Disney World. That castle's a real castle in Germany, and I tell you, the one in Disney doesn't have the torture chamber still. The one in Germany does. So, different perspectives. But getting back to the fantasy movies that influenced me, fantasy movies and shows, let's say that influenced me the most. You're getting into the 80s, for sure. So, I was exposed to a lot of violent movies early on, because my parents pretty much gauged I could handle it. They always seemed to, even when I was under the age of 10, they always made sure to do that for the sex scenes, for the nudity, which I find amusing now as an adult, because they used to let me watch, people get split open, but you do not see a nipple, young man, and also we lived in Germany, can't watch a TV advert for G.I. Joe without a pair of well proportioned breasts. It's just a different culture. It's very sexually unhinged, which can be to their detriment, as we all know. Okay, so moving right along. I mean, I've actually bought most of these movies, by the way, just for my own personal collection. You got the Conans with Arnold Schwarzenegger, both of them. I don't like the Destroyer as much as I liked the Barbarian. It's just a different movie. I didn't really like it as much, but you can't really go wrong with Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan. Though I'm going to tell you right now, this new guy to play Conan, Jason Momoa, I really didn't like that idea, because I watched him on Stargate Atlantis, and he was my favorite character on that show, because he was a bit of a roguish badass, but he was very lean, right? I like, there's no way this guy's going to build up Conan bulk, and I tell you, in his recent appearances, yeah, that dude hit the gym. He had himself a plate of pasta and hit the gym. So yeah, it should be good. I'm hoping that I'm not damning myself here. I hope the new Conan's going to be good. So you got Conan. And then some people think it's terrible. I don't care. It was the most interesting thing. I mean, I saw these a lot when I was a kid, when movies didn't matter how terrible they were. Because, story didn't have to be very complex to keep me entertained. Krull. Okay, so, and that is just, it was weird. For me, it was so interesting to see the blend of science fiction and fantasy kind of intertwined, and it made me have a lot of weird thoughts about, stories and that sort of thing. Let's see. I did still watch quite a bit of cartoons growing up, so a lot of my fantasy influences definitely come from old school cartoons. Not old school, but like maybe 80s, 90s. You got Conan the Adventurer. Naturally, I had to watch that. One that I used to love, and it influenced me for sure, but it's totally didn't finish. It got canceled or whatever. Was the Pirates of Dark Water. And this is back before the Pirates of the Caribbean was even a thought of a movie. Um, and the interesting thing about this world is like this fantasy world for sure. There's not Earth, but the whole concept of like this evil dark water, which is just like the embodiment of evil, that's going to consume the entire world, can only be stopped by like this band of pirates. But it's crazy. Like, and it was just it's so hard to describe. They acquired these items that would dispel the dark water. If they can get them all, the dark water would be permanently pushed back again. Like this had happened before, and they succeeded. But now the items have been scattered, and they need to be collected. And the crew was interesting. The magic was interesting. Ecomancy, which I hadn't even, I'm a kid. I don't know anything about D&D, so to me that was my first taste of like school of magic. Yeah, it's just I really like that show, Pirates of Dark Water. And it's a lot of good memories there. I even watch it on occasion. Of course, the classic sci-fi fantasy crossover show that has terrible plot lines and was really just to push an action figure line, He-Man. I don't like He-Man. Which I hope Grayskull, the new upcoming He-Man movie, actually does well. If they're smart, they'll do it well. Okay. I mean, yeah, I've bought so many movies regarding this high fantasy sword and sorcery type of genre. It's hard to just pick them out of the air. I really should have made a list. So I'm sorry if this is kind of rambly. The Dungeons and Dragons television show. Even before I rolled a single one of these, I knew about Dungeons and Dragons, the television show. And wow, like Tiamat and the guy with one horn, Venger. I know that was one of the things that bothered me about that show, was the whole Venger only having one horn thing, because I knew he had another one and he just didn't want to get it, even though he's so damn powerful. It was a mess. Good times though. I mean, I love that little barbarian. I hate the unicorn. We gotta put the cutesy stuff in for the kids. But I mean, there's a point where it feels like pandering. Who wanted to smack that ranger, really? Like, with his little arrows that can do anything he wanted. Like, oh, I want to tie those guys up. Yeah, no. He was the one that I just. I mean, the cavalier was a joke, sure, because wasn't much of a cavalier, but the ranger was just such a douche. He hurt my head sometimes. And the Dungeon Master is kind of cool. I kind of like the little squat, hobbity kind of guy. Giving you little riddles to solve. Maybe that's why I ended up being a GM and DM for so many years. Still one of my favorite positions to play on the table. The Lord of the Rings movies, when they came out, really did change how I viewed high fantasy. And the Lord of the Rings series. I even tried to read the books. Sorry, Tim. Didn't make it, dude. I couldn't make it through the Tom Bombadil crap in the first one, and I still trying. I'm gonna keep trying, but I'm not making any promises. I think the only fantasy books I ever really read through and through were the Dragonlance Chronicles, all three of the core ones there, and that's because all my friends are really into Dragonlance. I used to mention these characters all the time. It used to drive me nuts. Because as a GM, when your players know something you don't, they can really get underneath your skin. And especially when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and they're always referencing Dragonlance. And then then of course, disappoint me. They got that most recent D&D Dragonlance movie, complete garbage. Just a terrible, terrible mess. Ah. Now, speaking of that, I actually do have the Dungeons and Dragons movies. Yes, all of them, even Wrath of the Dragon God. Yes, because there's just something I needed to have. There's nothing else, you know. And in the first one they ever brought out, the one with the Wayans brother, Damon, I believe. Yes, Damon Wayans. I mean, Gary Gygax is in there, so it's a little piece of, you know, the hobby and his career. It's like every Marvel movie that has Stan Lee. I mean, one day, not sure when, but one day, we're no longer going to have Stan Lee, and all we're going to have is this video footage. And we're going to have these fond little memories and be like, Excelsior! And, you know, be like that. Well, I mean, just about every fantasy movie that comes out, I try and make a stab at it. The most recent series I'm into right now, and it also inspires me as an adult, is Game of Thrones. I'm sure that is no surprise to anybody. I have not read the books though, and it's not like other series. Like my friends were really big into the Legend, the Sword of Truth series, Very Good Kind, which is translated over into the television screen with Legend Seeker, and the story got completely fucked up. But I think they're still running with that, and it's unfortunate that they had to brutalize the story that bad and make it so kind of low budget, but what do you do? Now, this Game of Thrones, I've never read the books, so I can't be disappointed by its film interpretation. But the cast is so... I love the cast. And again, here we see Jason Momoa, the guy that's supposed to be the next Conan. He plays this, like, Mongolian style tribal leader of, like, these horse people. Not like literally horse people, but people who live their lives, you know, kind of like Mongolians, very much reliant on horses. And yeah, but okay, think about it this way: they're like Rohan with balls. Yeah, the riders of Rohan, although proficient, were to me more like well-trained Prussian cavalry. These guys are brutal. I mean, they're even referred to like the Mongol, like Genghis Khan's armies were referred to. They're called the Horde. So, and finally something that says Horde that doesn't make me think of orcs and all sorts of World of Warcraft gobbledygook. So I'm really interested. I'm following it closely, as close as I can, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm getting much delight out of watching that series. I mean, yeah, there's some TNA, and you know, maybe don't bring the kids. I mean, as I explained earlier, if it was my parents, they'd just be like, "Okay, you're good. You know, now they're cutting the dude's head off. Oh, there's a genital area." Yeah, that's just the things that stick with you. So I'm sure I have more, guys. I don't have all those movies out there because I didn't like any of them. I just cannot remember every single one. Safe to say, anything that's fantasy that came out that isn't Japanese style anime, I probably picked it up. I'm an addict. I really enjoy those settings, that genre, and every little thing that I can find in those can be used somehow into a role-playing game. So I always try and think of these things, and yeah, that's about it. So yeah, we're getting close to about the 25-minute mark now. I'd like to thank all of you that stuck around, and hope maybe we we both got to share, or we both, like there's one me and one viewer. Oh, it probably is only one viewer. Um, we got to share some nostalgic moments. I hope that it brought you down memory lane somewhat. And I don't know, my love of fantasy is starting to bleed over into my real life. I'm actually, because my mother was born in Nottingham, England, home of Robin Hood. I've been doing this a lot of exploring online and looking into possible immigration to England, and because I mean Canada is a wonderful country and it's done a lot for me, but being raised overseas, there's just something missing, and I don't know. I like it's very much to me the kind of place I like to live. I've been there before. Girlfriend hasn't, so what I'll be doing is planning a vacation to basically probably to London, and maybe if I'm smart or well organized, I could take a train trip up to maybe north, south, wherever. Maybe go up as far as Liverpool or Manchester, Newcastle. Um, Maybe even go up to Scotland. Just to have a little scout around and see how the culture change affects her, because her mother is also English. So I think it'll be very easy for us to immigrate, but there's a lot of homework you have to do. And also, based on the videos I see here online, there's a hell of a gaming community there. There's something with that ancient culture that even my own ancestors came from, that is still there. And no matter how much you pave it over, no matter how much you try and modernize Britain, it's still going to be this, in a way, Anglo-Saxon, place. This rough place. Sometimes the sun shines, but most of the time it rains, and the people are they're still, here. This is my biggest thing. This is one of the reasons I've been looking into it, because here in Canada, it's either snowing or it's incredibly warm with lots of construction everywhere you go. And when it does rain, which is my favorite meteorological event, you get a lot of complaining or stating of the obvious. Hi, did you know it's raining out? Look, it's raining. Oh my God, right? It's raining. Jeez, what a horrible day. Which of course I'm like, excuse me, it's not a horrible day. Why don't you shut your flippin' mouth? Now I'd show you, but I mean, I love rain so much. I got an umbrella that looks like a broadsword, which, tell you the truth, until you open your umbrella, people give you a couple of weird looks. Maybe I'll have it in the background of one of these future videos. But I want to go someplace where like it starts raining, and if I said something like that, hey, it's raining outside, average English person would be like, oh yeah, oh, so that's what that water coming from the sky means. I've never seen that before. Like just real sarcastic, and yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a long time of planning, if it's even going to happen at all. Any suggestions any of you have, I would love to hear them. And, it's not going to be easy. I'm a military brat. I was uprooted quite a lot growing up, and moving away from friends and family is the worst thing you ever could do. But I've only got this one shot at life, and as an RPG enthusiast, someone who's raised predominantly in Europe, I think that's the next step. I think that's the place I need to be. So, sorry about the taxi cab confessional here at the end, but that's just how I feel. That concludes my fantasy rant slash Mopey McMoperson moment. I'd like to thank all of you for coming and taking a half hour out of your day, exactly a half hour now, and listening to me jabber on. So now you can choose to either subscribe to my channel, or you can discard me like yesterday's jam. And I'm sure the Brits might know exactly where that quote comes from. But until next time, guys, always, just like I always say, keep your dice rolling, and we will see you next time. Cheers.